So how bad is it really? We needed a bird's eye view, so we came up here to the top of Salesforce Tower and mounted a camera. We recorded for weeks to see how bad the problem was down there. Lauren and Meredith, good morning. It's all after this report was released by the FBI that studied active shooting incidents for more than a decade. And in almost all of the incidents, there were key warning signs that were never reported to law enforcement, and that was true for Noblesville as well. This case has led investigators to follow up on tips across the country, including one here in Colorado. Our Call 6 team went to work comparing addresses, dates, and times. Those calls for the dog in the tree came from over here, just a block off the Monon on the near north side. But the 911 center gets a lot more calls for animal-related issues. In fact, from April 2017 to April of this year, they got 23,000 calls. But 13,000 of those calls never made it to animal control officers. Hundreds of investigators from state police, the Delphi City Police Department, the Carroll County Sheriff's Department, and the FBI are involved in the case. They all have just one common goal. That's to find the killer. Live this morning showing you a new piece of technology that firefighters are using to help you if you got lost on a trail. We'll show you that coming up here on Good Morning Indiana. Hey, Lauren and Meredith, we've been making a lot of calls. We've got our whole Call 6 team on this. Right now, just to recap what we know so far is this morning, right about 8:15 at Dennis Intermediate School, there were reports of shots fired. At some point, the suspect went inside the school, and this is what we learned from state police, and the suspect took his own life. Again, shots were fired there around the school. We are working to figure out what events led up to that. We've been able to confirm right now that a teacher was one of the people shot and a student. They are in Methodist Hospital. We don't have an updated condition on them at this point, but that is the information that we have at this point. More than 12 hours until the storm hits here in Clearwater. It's about 30 minutes west of Tampa, and right now there's still some traffic out on the roads. People leaving town are getting some last-minute supplies before the storm hits. So not only are the local and state authorities preparing for the response, FEMA is also taking a key part of this. I'm joined with Mike Pruitt. He's with FEMA. Hurricane Irma here about 4 hours from hitting this area, but you can see already ahead of the hurricane, the whole area, the whole beach here is completely receded. It's been a tough day for law enforcement and the community as a whole. It all started this afternoon right around 2:30 with a call for a car crash on Madison Avenue near Maynard Drive. But when Lieutenant Aaron Allen arrived on the scene to help, he was shot and later died. Now we'll get to the specific details about what happened here in a moment. But as you can imagine, it's been a tough day for the people in the Southport community. RTV6's Matthew McClellan is live as people become reunited with their kids. Denise, you're here as well. Does one of your kids go to the school?
I actually have 2 students here.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about how you found out today.
I actually got a phone call or a text message from a friend of mine asking if my kids were okay and if I had heard. At that point in time, no, I hadn't.
We can tell you right now that the suspect's house is being raided by not only state police, local police, but the ATF and the FBI. They're here right now. Step out of the frame so you can see what's going on. And right now, we aren't going to identify the suspect's name. We're going to wait for law enforcement to give us that officially. There's been a lot of rumors out there on social media, so we want to make sure we are right on that. But we can confirm right now that this is all related to the middle school shooting that occurred today. But because this is a juvenile case, he could get out prior to his 18th birthday because it is up to the Department of Corrections to determine how long he'll actually be in there. But it was also an emotional day in court. And Meredith, one of the most emotional people in the room was the judge himself.
Yeah, it was awfully surprising.
Call 6 investigates Paris Lewbel with a story you'll see only on RTV6.
The investigation has drawn tens of thousands of tips and produced thousands of leads, and finding Abby and Libby's killer remains the top priority. Call 6 Investigates has learned investigators have turned to different law enforcement agencies to review their work. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation and agents from other FBI field offices have taken a second look at the case. Their recommendations and conclusions are not being released, but their expertise is meant to assist in making sure no stone is left unturned. The prime suspect in this case remains the guy behind this sketch and this voice.
Downhill.
This case has led investigators to follow up on tips across the country, including one here in Colorado. And in the past year, that person is the only person to be publicly identified by police as a person of interest in the case. It was these trails about an hour south of Denver where police say Daniel Nations was threatening people with a hatchet. In September, Nations was arrested in Colorado and charged with menacing. Colorado investigators also found that he was wanted in Indiana for failing to register as a sex offender. Investigators on the Delphi case flew out to Denver to question him as he faced a number of court hearings with no connection to the Delphi case. For the next 2 months, Nations was transferred to 2 other Colorado counties to answer 2 unrelated charges. Call 6 was there in a Colorado courtroom in late January when Nations was going to be released on his own recognizance for providing false identification to officers in Clear Creek County, Colorado. That's when an updated warrant from Indiana appeared. The felony warrant out of Johnson County is for failure to register as a sexual violent offender. Originally, the warrant wasn't extraditable from Colorado, but it was updated on January 10th to allow for extradition from anywhere in the U.S. Now Nations is back in Indiana to answer to those charges. State police still say Daniel Nations is only a person of interest, and detectives do not have enough information to include nor exclude him as a suspect.
Now, we reached out to state police. They say they don't discuss specifics of the investigation, but they did release a statement to us. It says, in part, it is common with complex investigations to share information with other police agencies. Information shared between these agencies does become part of the investigation.
That's Carmel Mayor James Brainerd moments after he crashed his city Ford Fusion on April 20th. This video is from one of 3 Carmel police dash cameras. They were all rolling as officers were called to the crash along 3rd Avenue Southwest just after 2 p.m. on the 20th. Lieutenant Adam Miller was the 3rd officer to arrive on the scene, his dash cam and wireless microphone recording this initial conversation with another officer.
He's coming around this curve. He thinks he may have fallen asleep. Oh, the one car? No. Southbound is this yellow truck on the trailer. Okay. It's southbound, and tagged that rear trailer tire.
And then the question.
There's still some discussion about getting vehicle. Yeah, do I have to take him for a seat test?
According to the accident report, Mayor Brainerd was driving on 3rd Avenue Southwest when he crossed the center line and ran into this trailer being towed by a truck.
Mayor, how you doing? Oh, you all right?
Yeah, thank you. I know, I may have slipped over. I was struggling to stay awake earlier, but I don't think so. Maybe.
As far as the whole testing process and everything, you just want to do that through HR, or do you want us to help you with that, or how do you want to handle that?
Oh, does you be tested? Yeah, I do, don't I? Because it's the
tow away.
Yeah.
We're going to tow it.
Yeah, sure.
According to the City of Carmel's drug and alcohol testing policy, city employees driving city vehicles are required to take a post-accident test as soon as possible after an accident if one of the vehicles involved incurred disabling damage and must be transported away from the accident scene by a tow truck. And in this accident, the dash cameras show Mayor Brainerd's assigned city vehicle getting loaded onto a tow truck and taken away from the scene. But it's what happened after the crash that's raising questions. In the dash camera video, you see Mayor Brainerd start walking towards City Hall after talking with police, even though those officers offered to give him a ride. The officers assume he's heading back to get tested.
He's walking back to City Hall to talk with Barb so he can go get his P-test. Well, he's going to have to go get tested now.
But did that test ever occur? The official accident report filed by police blames fatigue as a contributing factor to the crash, but the boxes to enter drug and alcohol testing were left blank. After months of digging through accident reports, dash camera video, and city policies, Call 6 Investigates found no evidence that the mayor ever submitted to those tests. We even specifically asked the city for any communications, invoices, or proof that the mayor followed the city's drug and alcohol testing policy. The response: the city has identified no records that are responsive to your request. We reached out to the city for an interview with Mayor Brainerd. They denied an on-camera interview, but did answer our questions via email. We asked, why did the mayor fall asleep while driving? They said the mayor was very tired, having worked several long days in a row. He had been in downtown Indianapolis for an early morning event and had not had a break while on his way to his next event. We also asked, why didn't he take a drug and alcohol test? They say elected officials are exempt from this policy as they are not employees of the city. The email goes on to say the mayor, when talking to police, said he understood he may have to take a test, but he also knew he had to give a speech at the Historical Society, and he did not want to cancel at the last minute. But we went through the city employee handbook and the drug and alcohol testing policy, and we couldn't find any exemption for elected officials. We asked the city to provide that exemption policy specifically, but they never sent it. Raising that question, are elected officials really exempt from following city policy?
The City of Carmel's Civilian Employee Handbook covers everything from safety to workplace violence to computer policies. But according to Nancy Heck, the city spokesperson, any of Carmel's elected officials don't need to follow it. It all comes after Call 6 Investigates uncovered that Mayor Brainerd did not take a drug or alcohol test after he crashed his city vehicle on April 20th, something that the city requires for each city employee if the car has to be towed away from the scene. The city says the mayor is an elected official and not a city employee, and thus those policies do not apply to him. Many of you asked on social media, why didn't we talk to the mayor directly? While the city did answer our questions via email, they declined all requests for an on-camera interview. So this weekend, before one of Mayor Brainerd's public events, we asked if we could have a moment of the mayor's time.
Hey, Mr. Mayor. How are you? All right. Paris, Channel 6. Can I talk to you a little bit about your accident?
I've got 2 minutes. I got to meet the German counsel over on the other side.
I just want
I'll bring him over to talk to you,
just want
too.
to set the record straight. Are you above city policy? Should you be above
Not
city policy?
discussing that today.
And Mr. Mayor, can you want to set this record straight on your accident? Not at all?
The city spokeswoman again directed me to email all questions. We again asked for an on-camera interview on Monday, but that specific request was never answered. So are all City of Carmel elected officials exempted as well? On Monday morning, we emailed everyone on the Carmel City Council, all 7 of them. We asked them if they knew they were exempted and if they believed they should be. We are still waiting for a response from each council member. We were also curious to see if other cities' elected officials were also exempt from their city policies. We reached out to Noblesville and Fishers. Noblesville told us they were still checking with their legal department for a specific answer. But Fishers told us in their city, elected officials are not exempt from city policies that are defined for city employees unless it pertains to an exemption due to state statute or executive privileges.
911, what's the location of your emergency?
When you need help, that first question is the most important. New signs along Indy's trails are supposed to help first responders find exactly where you are in an emergency. But Call 6 Investigates Paris Lewbel has uncovered a major flaw in the system.
As it warms up, Lauren Zucker is hitting the trails. While the bottom of her feet are on the trail, safety is always on the top of her mind.
The creek isn't lit up at night.
But when she's in the middle of a run, she says she sometimes loses track of exactly where she is. When an emergency happens on Indy's trails, trying to tell 911 dispatchers your exact location can be difficult.
I think any type of increased safety programs that we can get, especially on the trails as they become more and more popular in this area, is definitely important.
Part of the city's Master Greenways plan placed new trail markers along Indy's trails with specific signs that read 911 emergency locator and a 4-digit code.
Having something like that would just help for your location.
They're currently up on portions of Fall Creek Trail, Pogues Run, and the White River Trail. The Parks Department told us last week that when you call 911 and give them that number, they're connected to the exact coordinates of that sign's location. But our Call 6 investigation uncovered that code really doesn't do anything, and dispatchers have no idea what it is.
So would you be concerned if I told you 911 dispatchers, if you called them, have no idea what that number is?
Yes, that would be, because if there's something, posted like that, then they should know that information.
911, what's the location of your emergency?
With IMPD officers by our side, we did a test call. Dispatchers had no idea what we were talking about.
And it's not coming up with anything.
We headed to the Marion County 911 Center and brought them pictures of the signs. They had never seen them before.
And we don't know about it. Whoever calls us knows about it because they see it, but we don't see it.
We asked them to enter multiple different codes we found on those 911 locator signs. None of them worked.
That's one of the hardest difficulties of being a dispatcher is you'll have somebody call 911 for an emergency and they simply don't know where they are.
The dispatch center says they were never told the signs were being put up in the first place. Indy Park says they're working to properly integrate them with the city's 911 system. They go on to say in order to avoid confusion until the program is fully implemented, the signs will be removed. In Indianapolis, I'm Call 6 Investigates, Paris Lewbel.
He always wakes up raring to go, ready to jump in the truck, ready to get out of the truck and get into the airport. This is his favorite place to be. Ready? He's a harder worker than I am.
And he does it on 4 legs.
You can just hold tight for me. We'll just be a second as we pass.
Detecting bombs is his thing, and all that wagging is for a reason.
Good job.
He has some bragging rights. He's better at detecting bombs than humans or machines.
My canine is Mászló, which is Hungarian for luck. He is a Hungarian Vizsla, and he's 4.5 years old. Really crazy little dog.
Mászló is part of a special team of canines and their handler handlers tasked with just one thing at Indianapolis International and other airports across the country. The dogs are trained specifically to look for explosives on people or inside bags when you go through the security checkpoint. I was given a training device inside that black bag. Although I couldn't smell anything, to a trained canine, it smells like real explosives. We moved the bag to different places around the airport, seeing if the canines could find it. And some of Masley's co-workers joined in too.
Come on, go to work.
The dogs sensing it right away, all to get this.
And when they encounter one of their target odors that they've been trained for, we've made an association through training that they're going to find their most wonderful toy in the whole wide world. My dog, Masley, loves a tennis ball. Good boy.
The team tests all the time using those decoy explosives.
Right on by the dog.
And always at a surprise to the handlers. And although the dogs have an infectious smile and are cute and cuddly,
Right on past the dog. Get you guys right on by the dog. Hello, get you right on by the dog.
you're not allowed to pet them.
I let everybody know I'll give him an extra pet whenever I get home for them, but while he's working, he can't be distracted. It's very, very important for us to keep the dogs focused on a mission.
A mission to keep you safe, also they can get that favorite toy.
Okay. Best day ever. All the time. We always try to make that the best thing ever, the funnest thing ever.
And after a hard day at work, Masley passes the baton to his four-legged counterparts and heads home, never complaining about his day and always ready for the next day.
These dogs are our best friends. They go home with us every day, and we really do form a bond.
At the Indianapolis International Airport, I'm Call 6 Investigates, Paris Lewbel.